everybody. Welcome back to another Flipping the Barrel podcast, the podcast where we interview energy leaders across the industry to find out more about their career and life journeys. Today, I have the pleasure to interview an icon in our industry, Hinda Gharbi. She was appointed Chief Executive Officer of Bureau Veritas in June of 2023. Hinda started her career back in 1996 when she joined Schlumberger, also known as SLB now, which is a global technology leader in the energy sector. During her 26 years with the company, she held a variety of general management positions in operations for SLB's core business activities at a global and regional level. She also assumed cross-functional responsibilities, including human resources, technology development, and HSE. Hinda, I just wanted to start by saying you're a big inspiration to all of us. What you've accomplished in your lifetime is truly incredible. I personally have been inspired and been following your journey since I joined the industry 11 years ago. You know, when you first join, you look up to the top of the company to see if you feel represented somehow in the leadership team, and you were that for me and for thousands of other employees. And so I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much for being here today. And I know a lot of people will really enjoy this podcast and hear about you and how you're doing today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Massiel, for inviting me and for your very kind words. It's really a pleasure to connect after 2 years out of the energy sector. So very happy to be here.
Yes. Okay, so let's get started, Hinda. I wanted to ask you, what was some important values that were instilled in you from a young age and that you've carried through to your professional life?
You know, I think one of the things that I would say was instilled in me since I was a very young child is curiosity, is respect for knowledge, for learning. This is a value I carried throughout my life, I would say, that hunger to learn, that hunger to know more about things, to know more about people, to know more about cultures. For me, that was always a thread throughout my career and my life. Respect for knowledge, the knowledge itself, respect for science and technology and the power. That is something maybe not very early on in my life, but I connected that respect for learning and knowledge with that. And then respect for hard work. You know, nothing comes without good commitment, hard work, and engagement. And that's something from my earliest years was instilled in me. And of course, humility and respect for people is really something that was important to my family and myself.
Thank you for sharing. And even today, you're still doing that, learning and continuing to, you know, break glass ceilings in different industries and in a different company today. You know, you spent over 26 years working for a global oil and gas service company, as mentioned in the introduction. I was curious to know, how did you get into the energy industry? Did your family, anybody work in it, or how did you really get into it? And do you have any fun recruiting stories, or, you know, how was that introduction to the industry for you?
You know, absolutely no one in my family was in the oil and gas sector or energy sector. I did my university studies in France, and Schlumberger, or SLB now at the time, is a major company, and they used to come to campus, and the way they talked about careers in the oil and field, and basically they opened this door to the rest of the world. And I remember very well this pamphlet which has a day in a life of a field engineer, and I was absolutely mesmerized by that. I read it and I carried it with me, and I kept it with me all the time. It was so impressive following this wireline field engineer in a day, and what they do and how they get in their truck and go to the field and all that. I just loved that. And then I was able to get an internship with Schlumberger, and you know, and I was sold. That was it. After that, I joined as a field engineer in Nigeria. So it's just that global nature of the industry, the technology, the amazing role of energy and how economies develop, that global view of things, that really kept me in the company. And of course, the meritocracy of Schlumberger and the opportunities that were presented absolutely kept me in.
Wow. Well, you know, you had an amazing 26-year run there. And so I think, just to your point, even from being introduced to it at the beginning, as a graduate student, all the way to how you climbed the corporate ladder. It was still the same kind of excitement, and almost kind of like what you were doing every day was something that kept you in the industry. So, what have been some key highlights or milestones looking back at your career now that you can pinpoint?
8 years into in my career in Schlumberger, I was at the time based in the UK, and I was asked to move to France and to take on the new technology portfolio for wireline. That was 2004. And my goodness, that was an amazing, amazing thing. First of all, it's just, that opportunity to be afforded to me at that time for one of our most, intense R&D businesses, most successful business line or product line at the time. I was really very privileged and great opportunity. But then once I got in that job, the capacity to go and look into what our R&D centers at the time were doing, to talk to customers, to be able to imagine the future technologies and how they will change things, the value you bring to customers. I absolutely fell in love with that job. It was amazing. It was an amazing job. And then, of course, I had, greater roles after that in management roles. But I think the other role that really, really I enjoyed was when I managed Asia Pacific. I mean, that was one of the most dynamic regions in the world. To send someone with my background to be there, and to really look after everything from China all the way down to Australia, to be in the middle of that. It was at the time the ramping up of production throughout Asia was really remarkable. And then I would say the other one, I loved all my jobs, but some of these jobs were really unique because they just opened so many opportunities, and I learned so much. That was the thing. It was really the learning and the kind of development that you get from these roles. And then, of course, having the opportunity to manage Cameron and digital at the time it was amazing. It's just Cameron was an amazing manufacturing company. You learn so much. You arrive there, and the wisdom you get from all the experienced folks there is just absolutely remarkable. Look, I can't go on, but those were amazing, amazing opportunities. And in my last job, spending more time on the digital side was absolutely eye-opening. Amazing business.
What an incredible journey so far, Hinda. And one thing that I think a lot of people really look up to you on is just your management style and being able to lead so many successful teams and groups in such a diverse company. Can you tell us a little bit about, what are some key ingredients that you found with all of your experience that are the key to leading a successful team?
It's a great question, and it's not easy to answer because you also adapt, right? It's not one thing. You learn. My ability to manage team improved over time because you get feedback. You learn about things that are not where you're not very strong, and things you're maybe too strong. So you start balancing that. But I would say that if I look at the threads throughout my career was learning again. I approached every job as a learning opportunity, which means you have to listen, you have to learn. There are other people who know a lot more about that business. They'll be able to explain to you things. It doesn't mean I don't have an opinion on some of these things, but it's important to learn, and humility in that learning process, right? Listening. And then, of course, managing a team is about being clear on the purpose of that whole team. Why are we there? People like to know, what are we trying to achieve? Clarity on purpose and vision, I think, is always very, very critical to make the team rally around that. And then, clarity of expectation for team members, because, like all of us, you want to work with people who where you stand with them. And with me, where you stand. The good, the bad, and the rest, right? So it's really important. And I would say the other thing, I was really quite blessed in many ways. I always have been able to get great teams, and I take risk also on people that I bring into the team, and that has served me well. And when you clarify your expectation, you're purposeful in what you do, I think it helps. But again, I'm still learning every day.
Thank you for sharing that. So you've run multiple global billion-dollar businesses. You've led big teams, like I mentioned, and you even made it to the executive level at SLB, which is a 100,000+ person company, for those of you who don't know just how big the company is. What do you attribute most of your success to, and to really be standing out and making it at the top of such a big company? What do you attribute that to?
Again, these are things that you think about these things sometimes. And I think, first of all, there are people who took risk on me. And I cannot ignore that, right? People who said, you know what, we can stretch Hinda in this job, or we can give her this opportunity. And I think that is a very important part of one's success, is when other people see your capabilities and give you a chance. So I was very, again, privileged, and I don't take that for granted, to be given opportunities at a good opportune time. But I also took risk myself throughout my career. I moved a lot. Even when I had a young family, I took risk and moved, because it was part, first of all, because I really wanted to do these jobs, but also because in doing that, you are stretching yourself, right, a little bit. So taking risk was, I think, part of it. And of course, performance. And, I did my best wherever I went to deliver on my jobs. But it's a combination of these things. It's not only one thing. It's not only the performance. It's also the people you work with who take a chance on you, give you the opportunity, and it's what you do with the opportunities that come your way.
I loved everything and how you answered it. And on your topic of young family, what advice do you have for young people in our industry who are thriving to climb the corporate ladder and have an amazing career like yourself, but also want to start a family? And there's always this worry of, can I really have a family and also be successful in my job? How has your family supported you throughout your career, and how did you manage the work pressures while raising a young family early on?
That's a lot of questions in one there, Massiel, but I'll try to break it down. Look, I always thought that, to me, the way I manage this is I tried not to seek perfection, because it's always a juggling act. It's a balancing act. There's a good reason we call it, work-life balance, etc., because you're forever balancing things. And the other thing is, there isn't, one checklist that you need to go through. There is no method to this. It's a balancing act and everyone's circumstances are different. For me, what was important is to do my best on both. It was important for me to progress in my career, and it was important for me as well to do my best to provide presence and balance and support to my family as well. Of course, I didn't do this on my own. I was extremely, again, blessed to have a supporting husband and partner. And that is so critical, to be able to have an international career, fast moving, etc. So that was fundamental, I would say. But again, I tried not to seek perfection, because, especially the kids, of course, move on and grow over time. And the load changes over time. I would say the practical logistical load to help with the kids is higher when they are small, and then they become more autonomous, etc. But the emotional load is the same. You have to be present for the family and support that. So it's a juggling act. I try to get help when I can on the logistical stuff, but the emotional is completely on your own. And that's where the family unit is important. So for me, I try to do my best every time, not always perfectly. And I leaned on my husband and the support where I could. And really, you keep working on it. To me, that's really the key thing. I'm very proud of my two children, but I keep working on this every day.
Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to highlight every single guest we've had on the podcast that's been very successful and made it to the top of their game. They've always mentioned their spouse, and just how it's so critical to have that support system in order for you to be successful. And so thank you for sharing that, as well as someone else mentioning that. One topic that I'm really interested on is, over the last decade or so, the energy industry has really tried, and other industries as well, to promote more women and attract more women to join the workforce, as the numbers are still not great, right? However, many of them, even though the pipeline is good and more women are going into STEM roles and we get them into the beginning of their careers, most of them don't end up staying in corporate or just moving to another industry. With your experience of 2 decades plus, what do you think we could do as an industry to keep and retain that young female talent that have joined us?
Look, I think first of all, if I look at the energy sector from the time I joined to the time I moved out 2 years ago, things have really evolved, right? We see more women in positions of authority. We see more women in senior leadership roles. There is more visibility around the gender agenda. There is more visibility on talent in general, right? And I'm more on the optimistic side. I feel that we're reaching a tipping point. I mean, in fact, looking at your podcast, that for me is such a demonstration of that amazing talent that is in the industry. Granted, it is mostly around the US, but around the very global organizations as well. So I think we're reaching the tipping point. I think there is a lot still to do to make sure that the progress throughout the career journey is consistent, and we still have gaps as women progress. I'm not going to pretend to know all the reasons behind that, but I think, again, I go back to the subject of taking risk on talent. We need to take risk on talented women. When I say risk, it's not a major risk. It's saying someone can be going to that next level, and then keep the visibility on the agenda. Executive commitment is critical. If you don't have executive commitments in organizations, it's not going to happen. And continuing to drive that, because it is critical for us, as for organizations. It's critical for society as well, and it's an amazing pool of talent that can progress. So I'm optimistic, but the executive commitment and continuing to drive that agenda is going to be very, very important.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's really great advice for anyone listening on taking risks on some female talent, and just giving them that exposure that sometimes they just need to perform well, and then maybe see that they had a talent that maybe wouldn't have been discovered if you wouldn't have put them in that role, etc. So talking about risks, after 26 years in SLB, you joined Bureau Veritas as the COO in May of 2022. This was your very first experience joining another company straight from graduating college. How has that transition been? What did you learn about yourself after stepping out of your comfort zone and being with a company for almost 3 decades? And what made you decide to make this career shift?
I mean, look, I'm no secret. I'm a very ambitious person, and I always considered that if I can progress to the next level, then I should. So it was time to progress to the next level. And that's why really I considered this opportunity when I was in Schlumberger. I loved my time in Schlumberger. I've never been unhappy. I was extremely happy with how I was working. Amazing team, amazing company. But it was time to go to the next level, and that required me to move. Now, if you move from one company after a very long career to another, you need to be ready to learn a lot. And it's good because I like learning. So when you go somewhere else and transition, you're essentially going from an environment where you practically can navigate blindfolded to somewhere where you have to learn everything, because cultures are not something you read in a book, right? It's all about the cues, the things you understand, the things you wouldn't understand right away. You bring value from where you're coming, but you have to understand the value creation where you are, and you have to really listen more, discover new things, consider other practices. So having the learning will is critical to navigate a new environment. And tough at first, no question. It's tough because you lose the familiarity, you lose the usual goalposts or signposts or whatever we want to call them. So you have to relearn what they are. But ultimately, it's also understanding the mindset of the new culture. That is so important. If you are someone who's saying, look, I want to move, but I'm not going to adapt to anything, then it's not going to work, because you have to go somewhere else and you have to adapt. And I'm very pleased to be in Bureau Veritas because, again, 2 years, and I have learned so much more about myself, about new things. I learn every day. Every day I continue to learn.
I think if there's one thing we can take away from this podcast is just to continue to learn throughout your entire journey, every single day, every role. And that's really what can help you to continue to be successful. And because it's what you're doing, you're always learning or finding those opportunities to get better through learning. You were appointed Chief Executive Officer of Bureau Veritas here in June of 2023, so almost a year. You Tell me a little bit about what continues to excite you the most about Bureau Veritas, and also just has the CEO role been everything you envisioned, and how has that transition been to CEO?
Look, Bureau Veritas is an amazing company. What we do is so essential for economies and stakeholders around us. What does that mean? We essentially think about us as a trust broker. We broker trust between different stakeholders. We are there to ensure that whatever is being done in any industry is safe, has integrity, the highest levels of quality, is the risks have been understood, and we do that in every single industry. And people trust exchanges and trade and what is being built because people like us, Bureau Veritas, can actually assure that. So the nice thing about Bureau Veritas, we cover so many sectors. And I like to say that, we look at things from how a t-shirt gets tested to how a nuclear reactor is being inspected. So we cover so many sectors. And for someone who loves learning, there is nothing better, right? It's just an amazing, amazing opportunity to be understanding so many different economic environments. I mean, I knew well the oil and gas sector, but that's one sliver of the global economy. Now we're looking at so many other activities, industries, and that is amazing. So essential industry, opportunity to learn, and I'm enjoying my time here. So, and what excites me is there is an opportunity with a company like this to help really reach amazing levels of performance and success. And we just launched our new strategy in March. Our Leap 28 strategy. And the strategy is about essentially taking our amazing company that is performing well today to other levels of outperformance. So I'm having a blast, I have to say. A lot of work, right? Yeah. Of course. CEO job is not only another level of management, it's also many, many more stakeholders you have to manage. But we have amazing 83,000 people who are extremely aligned to our purpose of shaping a world of trust by ensuring responsible progress. We take that purpose very seriously, and our vision to be the preferred partner for our customers' excellence and sustainability is extremely important to us. So we're a service company. It's a business to business, but we are also to society company. That's how we see our mission and our work. And yeah, as I said, I'm having a good time.
It looks like you're having a great time, and just it's so inspiring to see how successful you've been, even in a new company and leading an entirely new organization, and just doing it with such grace. You're very inspiring, Hinda. And just to end, what legacy do you hope to leave as CEO, and what message would you like to convey to inspire the next generation of leaders who are looking up to you?
Look, I don't know that I will be talking about legacy at this point. I'm early in my tenure. There is a lot to do. But the way I like to think about my mission is my job is to ensure that our people and the company can reach their highest potential. That's my job. Which means what? Which means that we are able as a company to go to those new levels of performance, that we have an ability to be leaders in our markets, and of course for our people to thrive and reach their highest potential. That for me is my mission today, and we'll see then what the legacy will end up being. And if I pursue this, I think I will not worry about the legacy. Now the second part of your question is what message to next generation of leaders. I'm not going to pretend to have all the wisdom of the world, but I think to me, again, leadership is about clarity of what you are trying to achieve. It's a lot of work to be in senior leadership roles and to really be having a lot of people rely on you to drive a certain agenda. So again, being sure why you're doing it. It's beyond the status, it's beyond the pay. It's about the purpose and the vision of what you're trying to achieve. I was in the oil and gas sector. I loved the technology. I thought what we do was extremely critical and amazing. And I always thought that I'm doing the work. Yes, of course, I enjoyed the higher responsibilities and everything that comes with it. But more importantly, what I did makes sense, makes an impact. And I think that's very important for leaders. That clarity of purpose and that clarity of vision of what you want to do is really important. And then the other part is it's people, people, people. At the end of the day, no matter whether you are building a product, constructing a facility, or you are providing a service, at the end, people enable all this. And even with technology augmented, people enable this. So your ability to inspire people, to drive people, and to be exemplary as a leader is extremely critical.
I couldn't think of a better way to end the podcast with just how you answered that question. Again, thank you so much for saying yes to coming on the podcast, sharing a little bit about your journey. And you've just been so inspiring. I know so many people are going to tune in to hear you speak. And I see a future book on Hinda on leadership, maybe. Because you just have such a big wealth of knowledge. And I think a lot of people are so attracted by your leadership style and just the person that you are. So thank you again for saying yes to coming on the podcast. And I hope everybody who's listening to this podcast just really will take in all of the golden nuggets that Hinda has given us. So Hinda, again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And all the best with the podcast. Great work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.